Rhino Ark focuses on mountain forests, the biodiversity within those habitats, as well as the threatened or endangered species that occur within mountain forests. So in particular, our focus to Rhino Ark is the Black Rhino, as well as the mountain bongo, of which in the country we have an estimated less than 100 individuals.
And welcome. How are you? How was your week? Mine was okay. And I think everyone else in this table, despite what has just happened to this country. As you watch, kindly subscribe, like, share. At least ambia mama one kitu ya maana ya, when it comes to tourism and all that. Kevin, how have you been?
I've been good.
Yeah?
Despite everything.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've been good, trying to keep my head up.
Ulikula tear gas?
Hapana, cannot be me.
You're the bougie one.
Can't kill myself. I can't do that. Cannot do that. I was safe at home.
Very good.
Yeah, watching it from a distance.
Maybe our guests walikula tear gas.
Yeah. Watajiintroduce watuambie. Yes. Today we have two very amazing guests from Rhino Ark. I will let them introduce themselves and what they do. Yeah. So I think we'll start with Gloria.
Ladies first. Thank you so much. My name is Gloria Waswa, and I work for Rhino Ark Charitable Trust as the Deputy Executive Director, Fundraising and PR. And it's been a beautiful week despite the challenges, the maandamano, but we are staying positive. I'm sure everything will happen for the good of Kenya. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, and my name is Moses Muthoki, working for Rhino Ark as the Deputy Executive Director in charge of operations. So I basically look at our functionality relative to our strategic plans and ensuring that what we do on a day-to-day basis eventually leads to efficiency, good performance, and we are therefore able to achieve our goals.
Yeah. Nice, lovely. So I think I'll ask you, Gloria, if you could give us a brief history on Rhino Ark, when it started, the exciting projects you've done up until this point.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, Rhino Ark was started in 1988.
Wait, what?
Over 36 years.
Wow.
Yes. I think right now it's 37 years.
Wow.
So 1988. And initially it was started to save the Black Rhino. And it actually just started as a simple project, actually, to just fence around the salient area of the Aberdares. However, over time, it has really grown to in terms of scope and impact as an organization. So we started off in Aberdares, but right now we are now working in about 5 mountain ecosystems. So our mission is to conserve mountain forest, and currently we're working in Aberdares, we're working in Mount Kenya, we're working in Eburu Forest, Southwestern Mau, and also Kakamega Forest. So one of the interventions that we do as Rhino Ark, we do a number of interventions, but one of the ones that I would just like to highlight as top is do conservation fencing, where we are constructing electric fences around these mountain ecosystems. So this far we have constructed fence of 805 kilometers long.
Wow.
Yeah, for example, in Aberdares we have fully fenced. In Mount Kenya, it is about 2/3 done, about 70% done. And also we have some significant amount of fence that we have constructed in Eburu and the other ecosystems. So beyond that, we also have interventions that are also targeted towards community livelihood improvement. So we have activities like beekeeping, where we do train communities on nature-based enterprises, how best they can put beehives just for commercial gains, so that they also reduce dependency on the forest ecosystems. So we do involve the community a lot, even in this construction of these fences, and we have provided a good number of jobs. They're involved in the construction of fences, and also they're involved in the maintenance of this fence. So I would say for every fence, we have at least, every 4 kilometers of the fence, we have at least one community member who is given a job to actually just monitor this fence. Yeah, so beyond that, we also have, we do train them as community scouts, where they're recruited from the community, and also they undergo KWS training, where they are trained on maintaining the integrity of this forest. So there's a lot of community involvement in our work. Yeah.
You mentioned KWS. Is also Kenya Forest involved as well?
Yes, we also work quite closely. There's quite a lot of partnerships that we do.
Okay.
We work quite closely with the Kenya Forest Services, Kenya Wildlife Services, and also the private sector. Yeah, in our work.
Now that you've mentioned private sector, how do you guys probably raise funds to now do the fencing and all this project? Because that project is not small time.
It's huge.
Yeah,
It's really
definitely. Building fences and maintaining them is a significant cost. And as Rhino Ark, we have an event that was actually started in 1989.
Hold up, what?
Yes. In 1989, we started an event, the Rhino Charge. We realized definitely, okay, not me, but it was realized then that funds actually needed to do these conservation actions.
Yeah.
And the Rhino Charge was started. It's a very interesting event. It's an off-road event. And it has been done for about 36. Actually, we just completed the Rhino Charge towards the end of May, 31st of May and 1st of June.
Yeah.
And we did it in Baringo County.
Wow.
So it also started as a small event. The initial event raised Kenya shillings 250,000. It sounds little money, but if you put it about 35 years ago,
That's
Yeah,
a lot.
that was a lot of money.
yeah, that was also some significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And over time also the event has really grown. It's a fun event. It has two dimensions. Of course, extreme motorsport event, and also the other dimension of the fundraising for conservation. So the event has also quite grown in terms of impact, and also in terms of raising funds. Right, I think the last event which we held this year, it raised 269 million Kenya shillings from one event. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could be proven wrong, but I think Rhino Charge is the most fundraising, the biggest fundraising event in this country. Bearing in mind that Kenyans are not really known to be philanthropic, and therefore the amount of money raised in a single event, as happens at Rhino Charge, proves that there is a lot of potential, especially if innovation, creativity. Rhino Charge is good proof that when you combine adventure, fun, with sort of challenge-based, it's a challenge-based event, which people pay to come to. And what has also come out is that you can have very loyal, repeat kind of philanthropists. The amount of money that have been raised over time, I think the cumulative figure could be about 2.7 billion, this year included. So that is a very significant amount, and people are happy to participate in that with the full knowledge that they are contributing to conservation work. So that is more significant.
Apart from the institutions you've partnered with, you've mentioned Kenya Wildlife Service, Kenya Forest. Does the government really play a part in this?
There is a very close collaboration between Rhino Ark and government. And when we talk about KWS and KFS, Kenya Wildlife Service, Kenya Forest Service, these are basically government agencies. So we are working with the government, if we have to put it that way, through the relevant agencies. And also when it comes, for example, to hosting of a Rhino Charge event, there are sectors of government that also come into play. For example, security. We just came from Baringo, where there is a security operation, Operation Maliza Uhalifu. But then the government took great initiative to ensure that the event was held without any incident.
Beautiful.
So there is a very close collaboration between and a proper alignment between the government ambition around conservation work, and therefore what Rhino Ark does is to come and complement that ambition.
For example, the last event, there was quite a lot of involvement with the Baringo County government. So you could see there was quite a lot of ownership of this event, to the level that they did quite a lot in terms of publicity of the event.
Wow.
Yeah, in terms of bringing in the relevant journalists, so that this event is documented even for posterity and beyond the time that we are doing the event. Yeah.
Nice. So you've mentioned there's a lot of, like, you've mentioned close to 2.something billion.
2.7 billion.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to manage. Are there any projects that money is allocated towards? Like, let's say you've mentioned the fences at Mount Kenya.
Yes.
Is there any future projects that you guys channel that cash towards?
Of course, the money is raised come into the Rhino Ark kitty, and basically that works two ways. So of course we have the unrestricted side, where, for example, our administrative costs are taken care of, and then we have the program interventions that we undertake still from these monies. Now, to just give a more specific kind of detail to this year in 2025, Rhino Ark is now involved in new projects, one of which is fencing the southwestern Mao. So we have a partner that we are working with in doing 30 kilometers to begin with, and there is a co-financing requirement from Rhino Ark. So in this particular situation, Rhino Ark, I think, is supposed to put in about 127,000 euro towards this project. So, and the question is, where would Rhino Ark get this money? So part of the funds raised from Rhino Charge, for example, come to co-finance some of these projects. We have an undertaking at the moment with other partners, WWF Kenya, KWCA, and KWCA is Kenya Wildlife Conservancy Association, and we have ICRAF. So, and we have this big project running for about 5 years. It's just been launched, starting from 1st of April this year. So, and there is also a requirement for co-financing for Rhino Ark. So all this money that is generated from Rhino Charge and from other sources, including other donors, then is channeled into these projects, and therefore has a direct impact on the conservation work that is happening in all the different ecosystems that we are working in.
Wow, you guys are doing a lot.
Not perhaps maybe as much as we would want. Of course, there are other things that are in our mind, but then of course resources are limited, and therefore you can be able to do as much as your resources allow you. We recently went to scope what is called South Laikipia Forest Reserve. It's an unknown forest because a lot of people think it is contiguous to, or it's part of the Aberdares conservation area. So as you drive from Nyeri towards Nyahururu, I think something like 50 kilometers out, on your left there is this forest, and actually cut across the road to the right side at a place called, I think, Tanyai. So we went to scope that, and there is need to actually fence that forest reserve. But then, of course, because of the limitations in terms of resources, then that becomes a hindrance. But then what happens at that point is that we seek out from our partners. At the moment, I think we have a partner who might be interested in supporting that work. So what we try to do is limit the administrative cost. Now, if you think about Rhino Ark, we're very small staff. Rhino Ark in totality is about 45 people. But then what we do is that we leverage on partnerships, so that then we can sort of bring strengths from other partners together with the limited resources that we have, and eventually what you have is a very efficient and effective system that underscores the kind of performance that we've had over the last 36 years.
You've mentioned Nyeri, and I'm thinking that side of the world, there are more of elephants than rhinos. So this means that Rhino Ark focuses purely where there is wildlife and forest, not just where rhinos are.
You're correct, because unlike the name, because I think the results that have been born out of the 36 years of Rhino Ark.'s work have outlived the name. A lot of people ask the question, why rhinos? Why the ark? The ark is Noah's time, biblically speaking.
Yeah.
And then we have rhinos. So, like Gloria explained, when Rhino Ark started back in 1988, the focus at that point was to fence off 38, a fence line that was 38 kilometers. And this was basically to secure the black rhinos that were within the eastern salient of the Aberdares. And as that fence, the 38 kilometers progressed, the outcome of that was really significant, both for the black rhinos as well as the communities that live adjacent to Aberdares on that section. So there were calls from the communities for that fence to progress beyond the 38 kilometers. So and what the communities had witnessed were reduced incidences of human-wildlife conflict. A specific example, recently when I talked to a person who lives there, said that their kids could not go to school before I think 9 a.m. or something like that, because then they would be meeting with wildlife on the way to school. They couldn't harvest. So and so many other things happened. So there was a lot of value that was realized from the 38 kilometers. So and over a period of 21 years, because initially that was not the intention for Rhino Ark to do 400 kilometers of fence line. That progressed gradually, and of course, as one of my friends says, suddenly, we had 400 kilometers of fence line there. So the name is a bit off. It has been outdone by by all the results that Rhino Ark has achieved. The focus for Rhino Ark is mountain forests. So, and when we talk about mountain forests, we're talking about the water towers in this country. And the focus is motivated by the realization of how critical these mountain forests are to the economy of the country. Now, for example, when you just speak about the Aberdares, 4 out of the 7 major rivers in this country actually rise from the Aberdare. When you talk about those rivers, you're talking about the Tana Delta, you're talking about and the northeastern and the Wasonyiro rivers, and so there is and the other interesting thing is, if you look at the human population and their settlement in this country, it aligns with these rivers. So as long as they're rising from this mountain forest, it's Rhino Ark.'s intention that a realization that those mountain forests are really critical for human existence in this country, and therefore there is every need for them to be preserved. Talk about power generation, talk about all the economic activities and the benefits that accrue from agriculture, and by extension the social and economic positioning of the people in the country around the Aberdares, around Mount Kenya. 30% of all tea grown in this country is around the Aberdare. 70% of the coffee is around the same area. So there is every need for the nation as a whole to realize how critical the mountain forests are, and therefore to ensure that they are safeguarded for the generations to come.
You've mentioned that as Rhino Ark, you have less manpower. So what are you guys doing probably in the society, in the community, to sensitize that whatever we are doing, the fencing and all this, how do you sensitize the community
to get involved in
Then you can add so one thing I wanted to highlight, a key program is we also have a conservation education program. And here we are working with the schools who are around this mountain forest. This is just to start them young, to nurture them so that they can know the importance of these ecosystems at a young age. So we have a sort of a curriculum, and this far we are working with about, I think, over 170 schools around these ecosystems, so that they are nurtured. Even when they grow, they're able to partake even in the conservation of these ecosystems.
So do you train the teachers, or do you have your own staff in the schools?
So we don't have many staff, as you mentioned. I think we have about 2 or 3 staff who just focus. Actually, one is one who's fully focused on conservation education. So we do training of trainer model.
Okay.
So where we train maybe specific teachers who are able to take up activities that encourage children to partake in conservation, like raising tree nursery beds, small tree nursery beds, water harvesting initiatives like that, and also planting trees, forest rehabilitation, so that they also in the current system of CBC, they're also actively involved in the conservation work. Yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps to add, when we think about conservation challenges or challenges around conservation, they're basically people issues. So if you really want to address conservation issues, you must address people issues. In addition to what Gloria has talked about within the conservation education program, we have these engagements at all levels of society. When we think about Southwest Mau, the endangered forest block, we're working with church groups, for example, in terms of developing tree nurseries and for the intention of doing restoration work in that forest. In Eburu, and now most recently in the Aberdares, we have Boda for conservation. When you think about the Boda fraternity, it's everywhere in this country.
Yeah.
It's across board. So Rhino Ark has seen the opportunity to utilize the Boda riders in conservation work. So there has been some very well received acknowledgement of conservation work by the involvement of Boda riders. So they if you think about their interaction in the society, they interact with everybody, with teachers, with business people, including those who are doing illegal activities within those forests. So then they become a key cog in terms of addressing some of those challenges, particularly in this regard to conservation work. If you think about somebody who's been burning charcoal, for example, they're most likely to emerge out of the forest on a Boda. So then the Boda riders become a good entry point for trying to advance in Rhino Ark's interest conservation work. So we have the conservation education program running in schools. We're working with church groups. We're working with Boda riders, and then in addition to this, we have community forest associations, which are the grassroots level conservation organizations mandated actually under the Constitution, and therefore some of those direct conservation initiatives, tree planting, trying to not really enforce but educate and bring awareness at that grassroots level. Then the community forest associations are also a key component of the people that Rhino Ark is working with.
You've mentioned forest. I just remembered there's someone who was deforesting part of, I think it was Aberdares. It was a clip that was going on social media where there was a big trucks seen, carrying logs of trees, which was quite sad. Anyway.
Yeah, it's unfortunate it happens because, like I mentioned, conservation challenges actually people issues.
Yeah.
So, those illegal activities, for the individual who's undertaking them, is actually seeing financial gain. That's their kind of livelihood. So, without perhaps maybe, acknowledging the kind of damage that they are bringing to the country, by deforesting, by cutting down those trees, by the kind of compromise that would occur on the water towers. So if that goes unchecked, then certainly the cumulative impact of that would be, end of life, or struggles or conflicts as people try to, scramble for the meager resources that would be available. So that is why all these different levels of engagement must occur. There must be the protection bit. For example, those areas must be protected. There must be the restoration of what has been destroyed or damaged. And then, of course, there must be enforcement, where whoever is doing it, as long as it's illegal, then they have to face the law. So it is it's a whole matrix of different things and different approaches that have to be undertaken, all in sync.
Wow. Now, every time we speak about conservation, and you've mentioned a lot of forested areas that you guys are trying to conserve, you can't help but talk about climate change. I'm sure since 1989 to 2025, 36 years is a lot of time, and there's a lot of climate change that have gone on. How has climate change affected your work in terms of even animals migrating from one point to another, where you're trying to fence, water catchment areas? Have you had any challenges with?
Yeah, no, of course, I think a quick response to that is climate change and its impact has made Rhino Ark.'s work even more urgent, even more intensive, even more required. Because and I think we can see that transformation with the history of Rhino Ark and how it has morphed from the ambition to do that 8 kilometers of fence line in 1988 to having done 805 kilometers in 2025. Now, in addition to these, the climate change impacts have necessitated sort of broadening of the Rhino Ark.'s mandate from just looking at fencing to now getting involved in such activities as alternative livelihoods and nature-based solutions. Way back we were not talking about beekeeping and working with beekeepers to improve their productivity. We were not talking about clean stores or improved cooking stores. So we were not talking about restoration. So there is an incremental approach to the programs, right from when Rhino Ark started to the all the different now initiatives that are being undertaken at the present.
Yeah, probably I can also just add that definitely climate change is a pertinent thing. And actually, if you think about climate change, you just think about things like water provision. You think about, forests are one of the best carbon sinks, actually. So as Moses has said, so there's more urgent even need to protect the forest, because where does this carbon go? So we need more forest to act as carbon sinks. Also, the other thing is we have experienced also in our work is definitely there have been increased in terms of wildfires, and many a times Rhino Ark comes very fast and responds to firefighting in this forest. Yeah, so we using even some of the funds that we have raised from like events like the Rhino Charge, and also from the conservation funding that we are raising from different partners. Yeah.
About the people who go and settle in probably the forested areas because of one reason or another, and probably the government hasn't allocated them a solution towards their problem. How do you deal with people who just go and just settle somewhere just because the land is there?
You are right, because we have several places where we have encountered this. I think a good example, or maybe let me start with saying that Rhino Ark does not take the enforcement initiative. That rests with government. So, and because largely we are talking about public land in these mountain ecosystems, we have had an experience of places where people have settled, whether illegally or by some design of sorts that perhaps maybe was never properly articulated or brought to completion, in whether by legend. So, for example, we have Kakamega. We have the fence construction going on, but then you get to this place where you are not even clear of the boundary, because by the look of things, you have people who are already settled inside of the forest. So we have had an experience with that. But then the way Rhino Ark works is, before any fencing work is initiated, working with either Kenya Forest Service or Kenya Wildlife Service, they bring their surveyors, because this is government land. So they're the people who have full cognizance of where the boundaries are. So, and it is after the boundaries have been marked that then Rhino Ark comes in to do the construction of the fence. So we are working within or under the government directive as relates to the boundaries. Now, in Southwest Mao, what happened is we had people who settled inside of the forest. That's around the Doinet forest block. So, and they were actually evicted in 2009. For just to bring it's a very gray area, because people had sort of entrenched themselves quite a few kilometers inside of the forest, that if the government was to work with the forest boundary at that location, then a lot of people would have been affected, because what would be the visible boundary of the forest is actually the correct boundary should be 5 kilometers out or something like that, which is all settled. So what the government did was to establish a cut line. A straight line, and say, hey, this line, nobody goes beyond that. Everybody stay out of this. So, and the people who were inside of that cut line were actually removed. It was out in the media, and so that is exactly how Rhino Ark will not involve itself in constructing offenses on areas that are controversial, on areas that require government intervention. Rhino Ark leaves all those kind of interventions to the government agencies to deal with, and it's until there is clarity as to how the boundaries should be aligned, and therefore the fence should occur, that Rhino Ark gets involved.
Wow. That's a beautiful place. Now, we have a very beautiful monument on top of this table, and I can see it has there is 2009 car 23 Peter Kinyua, then there's 2007 car number 9. Maybe you can explain to us this monumental thing on top of our table. The centerpiece. Or basically, tell us more about Rhino Ark.
Yeah, we have these insignia on the table, so we have at the Rhino Charge sort of 2 categories of awards. So we have the winners ceremony, the prize giving, who won, and this is sort of a straight up kind of award. It is who managed all the 13 checkpoints within the shortest distance, and that's it. So you have a very clear-cut winner. But then we have a second category, which is awarded later on, a few days after the prize-giving event at the Rhino Charge, and it's called the Spirit of the Charge. So the Spirit of the Charge is basically an award that recognizes sort of selflessness by a competitor towards another competitor. So it could be that we have a competitor, car number that X, that perhaps maybe got stuck, and then we have car number Y who responded and tried to assist them and help them. So the Spirit of the Charge award or awards are actually nominated to certain teams who went out of their way, sort of forgot about the competition, and basically went to rescue or assist their peers in a different team.
So for our viewers, you can clarify the difference between Rhino Ark and Rhino Charge.
Yeah. So Rhino Ark is like the entity. It's the organization.
It is the mother.
It is the mother.
Okay.
And the Rhino Charge event, it's an event of the Rhino Ark. And its purpose is to fundraise for conservation. So it's just to generate resources to enable the Rhino Ark programs. Yes. Yeah.
And also on that, this year, have you had any new tech in Rhino Charge? Is there something new that has shown up that you've not seen in the previous years?
So yeah, every year we try to improve in terms of tech, especially for the Rhino Charge event. And yeah, this year we had some new tech just to improve on the search and rescue, just to making sure that some of our competitors are well covered. And then also we one of the requirements that we were checking at the scrutineering is to make sure every car has a new GPS. So just to increase in terms of navigation. And then we also had a live tracking such that if you are following the Rhino Charge, if you're not able to be present even at the event, you're able to track and see how the vehicles were moving. It was like a GIS kind of a software. Also, for the first time ever at the Rhino Charge event, we had a new electrical vehicle. It was very interesting, by the way. Even the residents of the Baringo County were quite amazed. For the first time, it was very silent. So I think that gives a lot of positivity for the future of Rhino Charge. So you can imagine if we have more EV vehicles and they're able to enjoy silent cars moving around, lesser emission into our forest ecosystems. Yeah.
Nice.
But for that one, I have as a car enthusiast and a petrol head, and me being an aviator, I would the reason why I would come to Rhino Charge is to hear that powerful engine maneuver on top of, coming up a hill, hearing that V8, V6 engine. Having an EV, I'm not disputing that EVs are bad, but they're cool. They're cool for cool people, But for the rugged people,
the attraction is that sound of that engine, Yani.
I think for Rhino Charge, the beauty about Rhino Charge is how long it takes to build that car. I personally know someone who took a full year to build his car, and it was a team of guys coming together and investing in it. And that is the beauty of community, which is now what we're trying to talk about. So I think we should encourage more people coming together and building. I don't know if Rhino Ark, do you guys have your own car as well that gets to participate?
By the way,
Okay, of course, preparing those cars for Rhino Charge is such an uphill task.
Yeah.
For the competitors, I actually estimate that there are people who have it as a full-time, preoccupation. They're basically looking or researching about how to improve their car. They're importing parts. They are changing things. So it's quite an engagement for them. Rhino Ark does not have its own car. It's a conversation that we've had that perhaps maybe we in the near future should also be at the forefront with Rhino Charge, Rhino Ark team. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
We are still not agreed who should drive it.
You can have Gladys.
Gloria. As far as,
We have female
Female
drivers.
Yes.
Three teams. So it's something that we can take a challenge. The only challenge will be, there are things that we try to hide from the competitors, so that it is a fair game. So I don't know if Rhino Ark has a car. Already we have a lot of information. We have the maps, we have the routes. So I think that's what some of the barriers that prohibit us from having a car. It will be unfair competition.
But then there is also the understanding that Rhino Charge is limited in terms of the number of vehicles that enter the competition. So it is limited to 65 vehicles. It is limited to 10 hours only on just one single day. So and that also goes to address the question about the kind of impact you have on the ecosystem where this event is happening. So they are really clear kind of there is very good thinking in terms of ensuring that there is a limit to the or reduction in terms of the impact that occurs on the landscape.
And what about the participants, like the people who come to view these cars? Do you also regulate that as well?
They're very clear rules and regulations in terms of attending a Rhino Charge event, whether as a competitor, whether as an official, whether as a spectator. So they are very clear. Actually, I think 7-8 pages of a document, just detailing the rules and regulations for all those different categories of people. So one of the clear guidelines is around waste. And waste management. So you have these camps with you're talking about 4,000 people in one location, and there is a lot of intensity in terms of waste production. So we must have a waste sorting center, where all these different waste, is categorized. Glass, plastic, and all the different kind of wastes, and that is collected and delivered back to Nairobi for recycling. Whatever can be recycled is recycled. So the Rhino Charge organization is very keen on the kind of footprint that is left within the landscape that the Rhino Charge occurs. So and that goes on to support. It's all about conservation. So we cannot be talking about conservation without walking the talk. So it's all those little elements that have to be taken care of. So that at least the conservation agenda that we philosophize and talk about and all that continues to thrive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question on the drivers. You mentioned about the driver. There's 60 the cars. There's 60. You mentioned 65 cars. I'm sure there are a lot of people who apply to come and participate in the event. What is the criteria of choosing who makes the cut and who doesn't?
There is a big document that sort of provides guidelines on anyone who's interested to join. And of course, then there are those two classes. There is the modified and the unmodified. And then the categorizations in terms of fundraising capability or targets that a competitor seeks to achieve. And then based on that, then now they can make an application to come for Rhino Charge.
We are encouraging more Kenyans to join us in this journey. And one thing I would like to encourage Kenyans is to also consider things like donations. And if there's a company that wants to work with us, one of the things that we do is to do like a tailor-made engagement for companies. So it's just a matter of reaching directly to us. Info at Rhino Ark. You can easily do an inquiry in case you want to, because we can help you deliver your environmental objectives. Let's say if you're a company, you are trying to support the environment, you're looking for the ecosystems that you can even plant trees, you're looking for community that you can support, things like beekeeping for women and also supporting the youth. We can also help you with that.
So are you guys on social media?
Yes, we are on social media. We are on various platforms. We have our website, www.rhinoarkkenya.or.ke. Also, we have a direct email address in case you want to reach us. It's called info@rhinoark.or.ke. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter as Rhino Ark Kenya. If you search for us, you'll just find us. Wow. Yeah.
So Rhino Ark focuses on mountain forests, the biodiversity within those habitats, as well as the threatened or endangered species that occur within mountain forests. So in particular, our focus to Rhino Ark is the Black Rhino, as well as the mountain bongo, of which in the country we have an estimated less than 100 individuals.
Wow.
So there should be the recognition nationally of how important these mountain forests are as water towers, as places where all the water that is consumed in the country rises from. So, and basically just make a call to action for all of us to pay a lot of attention to the conservation of these areas. And also for individuals, at whatever level, to really think about conservation at that micro environment where someone operates, whether it is in their home, whether it is in their workplace, so that then conservation is embedded within the scope of our day-to-day lives.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Kindly follow them, subscribe. They're on YouTube as well. Get to hear their stories, get to support them as much as possible. I'm being informed there's a pay bill number which you can check on their website as well. Just support them and let's keep this great initiative running. For us, subscribe, like, follow. Please tell your mother to watch, your grandfather to watch. It's something that all of you can watch in a proper sitting room. Yeah. And for that, cheers.